Hey guys, Josh, one of the hosts for Abyss Gazing, the podcast, which you're getting ready to listen to. Is Now, in post, we actually added not one, but two musical guests. The first one that you guys are going to hear is Uga Buga. The song is called Righteous Man. You'll hear it during our commercial break. And then at the very end of this episode, you guys will hear a band called Loxias. And that song is called A Drunk is a Liar. And you guys can catch both of them this Saturday at Garden Grove Brewing Company for our outreach show, which is also going to feature Safe Sex, Lila Moons, and our tour buddies, Saint of Pine Hills. There is going to be links in the show notes below for more information on not only that event, but you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/events to find out more of what we're doing outside of the studio space. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode on Abyss Gazing's discussion on this year's Best Feature winner at Horrific Hope. This is The Coffee Table. Hey, you guys are listening to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark.
I'm one of your co-hosts, Billy.
And I am your co-host, Josh, that did not break a coffee table today. So overall, not a bad day. We're talking about The Coffee Table, one of the movie that you may or may not have heard of, but that Stephen King called, quote, a black movie that you may never in your whole life ever see one as dark as this.
I mean, coming from Stephen King, that doesn't mean a whole lot these days. He says everything's the scariest thing he's watched. So
I don't think he meant as scary, but this is also the first time we've ever done this. So this was not only a official selection of 2024's Horrific Hope Film Festival, it was also our Best Feature winner, and also David Pergera, I probably mispronounced that. If I did, I apologize. Also won for Best Actor in a feature as well. It's the first time that we have ever done a film festival full-length podcast discussion. So, Mark, this was the first time for you. What did you think?
sometimes I wonder where you find your movies.
Well, this one came to us. This one was submitted to the film festival, so I didn't seek it out. It found us.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That must have been painful. Nothing happened in the entire friggin' movie. It's an hour and a half of arguing.
My guy, you had quite a different experience from, I think, both Billy and I. I think you are odd man out on this one.
I mean, even the festival, it got rave reviews, did it not?
It did. And when
that doesn't mean they're correct.
When it stopped, I turned it, lights came back on, and I turned to everyone that was still in the theater and I said, what'd you guys think? And everyone was like, I completely understand why you saved this for the last feature. This was very uncomfortable. And I even had some people tell me that they probably need to go home and take a shot.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, okay.
Spoiler free on this. I mean, I can't see how you're like that, Mark, because even if I didn't have the subtitles on, I could probably pretty much feel what was going on without knowing what was said.
You have the first 15 minutes of the movie is arguing. Then the scene happens. Then the rest of the movie is just talking and debating and arguing at a dinner table, followed by one scene of actually something happening. That's the whole movie. There's almost nothing happening in the whole movie except either arguing or talking, and no event, no plot, nothing to build on the plot. Just okay.
So,
I will talk about this more in spoilers.
Yeah, that's the problem I'm having.
I will just say this, that I highly disagree with you. as I think it's now
Wouldn't be
become
the first time.
kind of become a running joke. We covered Brotherhood of the Wolf last week, and that was
I
your
love
pick.
that movie.
This was mine. I love this movie. This will go down in my top 5 more than likely for the entire year of films. This
Was
is
there
I've
drugs involved when you watched it?
no, I've seen it 3 times, and I absolutely love everything about this movie.
I mean, I can understand the first time, but after the first time, why?
So I will look. I will read you. I have Rotten Tomatoes pulled up right now, and Ruben Peretta Regatta from the publication Coca-Colas says the dining room, which I'm guessing it's translated from Spanish, but it says is bold and unlike anything you've ever seen before. And I will agree with that. I will agree with this dude and not you.
I mean, if I was having trouble sleeping, I found a cure for it. That and Mike Flanagan features.
Mark, you got to be the only guy I've come across and I've come into contact with that does not like this movie.
I mean, that's fine.
So, Billy, anything else you want to talk about or anything else you want to throw out there in terms of spoiler free before we take a commercial break?
Sure. Don't go on Mark's opinion. Go watch it. It is worth it. More in the spoilers because it's hard to talk about it without spoiling it, to be honest.
But why does the salesman kind of look like Ron Jeremy?
I'm not. On that note, it's on you, Josh. On that note.
You're not wrong. You're out of line, but you're not wrong. Yeah, so as Billy said, go watch it, go judge it for yourself. We're gonna jump into the spoiler freeze. We're gonna take a commercial break, but you guys can rent this movie for only $4. Support independent cinema. Check this out, and you guys can stream it for rent wherever you guys get your movies from Cinephobia releasing. I don't actually remember the name of the publication, but we're gonna take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us. Welcome back to Abyss Gazing, where we're jumping into the spoiler section of The Coffee Table. Because if you've seen The Coffee Table, it is a movie that you can't really discuss without spoilers, as Mark alluded to before the commercial break. But Mark.
Yes.
Start it.
You hated this movie, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how.
So I watch a lot of subtitle movies and series. It has nothing to do with it being subtitled. Nothing. It was a movie of nothing. You had the scene where he falls through the coffee table. That was like 5 minutes of the movie tops. And then the rest, everything before that and after that is either argument or just sitting around talking about irrelevant things.
Would it be better if it was set in 1742 or something for you?
I mean, it might be better if Monica Bellucci was there. At least it would have given me something to look at.
Go check out our Brotherhood of the Wolf episode where Mark and I trade places, and Mark gushes about the movie, and I spend an hour shitting on it. It's fine. So I don't really say this very often, but there are certain movies that you don't necessarily need character development, or you don't necessarily need some monumental thing to happen, because the entirety of The Coffee Table is a baby gets decapitated, which is probably one of a parent's biggest nightmares. For a freak accident, something like that to happen. I don't have kids, so I can't speak to that element of the story. But, putting your hatred aside of this movie, Mark, if something like that happened to one of your kids, how would you feel? And you had to tell your wife about it.
You mean her mother? This is a completely different conversation.
Whatever.
2 kids, Mark.
Huh?
Whatever.
2 kids.
Whatever.
Whatever.
You understand what I'm trying to say, though.
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to say, but it doesn't excuse having a movie of nothing.
Let's see. You're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. I have no issues with slow burn movies. I mean, two of the most popular, well, 3, The Witch, Hereditary, Midsummer, are all sitting in there in my collection. A lot of found footage is slow burn movies, but this is just slow burn with nothing to pay off. It's irrelevant conversations and debates and arguments for almost the entire movie.
I think you're wrong. I think you're looking at this movie literally on the surface level where, as I was saying, there are some movies that are contingent on character development, character arcs, growing to see some sense of development, whereas a movie like The Coffee Table hinges solely on this singular event that happens and literally the fallout of that event, to where you're getting to see how the wife is going to react to it, but also at the same time how the brother reacts to it, the soon to be, potential, like, I don't know, like the brother's girlfriend's friend who's like, recently found out she's also pregnant. And then you mix that with the little girl who's got a crush on her, the impending implosion of finding the baby head, like all of these things. This film weaves together tension in a really horrifying way. Like the first time I watched this movie, my wife came home and was like looking at me like I was on the edge of my seat. I had a pillow and I was like watching it like this, waiting for the big reveal of the dog to bring out the baby head and for uh Maria to see it. And to me, like that, it's not every day that I feel like, when it's not every day you find something that thrives on suspense and tension. I feel like everything nowadays, when it comes to horror, is all jump scares, and we rely so heavily on that. But when you go back and you watch like Hitchcock is a great example. When you watch a Hitchcock movie, it relies on that suspense, it relies on that tension, and this is a great throwback to that.
Yeah, I don't think so
Well, I
at
mean,
all. There was
You're
no
wrong.
suspense. It was
You're
just
wrong.
see,
Jesus Christ.
you're just reading the surface level, seriously. Because
Yeah.
I agree with you. The way you said it, it was arguing at the beginning and then the decapitation. But I took it at that point of, like Josh said, the fallout. Also with him trying to deal with those mental thing of how's he going to handle it with his wife? How did he kill his baby? What happened? Why did this happen? And the fact that they didn't even have to really show the baby or the head in the whole thing to get the suspense they're looking for. I mean, that alone was good to me.
But there was no fallout until the last 10 minutes. It was just like 45 minutes, hour of him looking constipated.
There doesn't have to be fallout immediately. It could be the buildup of what everybody else is feeling and what they're going through, and not knowing what he's going through and how everybody's interacting.
Also, like, it should also be worth mentioning too that, like, in the, like, horror is probably the one that is like the genre it's most famous for it, but it's kind of like an unwritten rule of storytelling is like you don't allow something to happen to the kids. Like that's just kind of like an unwritten rule. Like when Pet Sematary was first released, like, Stephen King got a lot of crap for it, and
that's slowly changing over the years. We're starting to see more and more of that, and we're even starting to see more of the kids being the bad guys.
It is, and I'm all for that, but I think a movie like this in particular, I think the reason why it makes you uncomfortable while you watch it is because it's a 2-month-old that, maybe even less than that, that gets decapitated and dies instantly.
And I mean, to me, it had like a Telltale Heart kind of feel to it, where he started hearing the things.
That's a great example.
The baby head sitting on the display over there, even though it was a cement one. He's seeing that baby. He's hearing the advertisement about the table. He's hearing the baby cry that's already dead. The dripping underneath the crib. When he's hearing that dripping, she's hearing it. He ran in there to take care of it, but it all sounds like Telltale Heart to me. Telltale Heart by Poe.
So is that what we're doing now? We're doing 2 verse 1.
What, you just mad? You told me I need to talk more. Now I'm talking more.
I think you looked at a movie like this and you saw it for what it was, because when you look and when we first meet Jesus and Maria, this is a couple that has they don't quite seem right for each other. Like there's tension there. Like right, you called it arguing, but it's tension. It's building and it's establishing the frame, the not the frame of the relationship where like he wasn't ready to have kids, she wanted to have kids. You know, you know, basically like Maria they've just kind of Maria's been the one that has done basically everything. Like she named the son. She kind of picked out, you know, everything in their wedding. She also like picked out everything in terms of like how the baby's room was going to be, you know, and so like I don't know, man. Like to me, I feel like this is a relationship where you have a guy that doesn't have his voice valued. And so for the first time in what probably could be several years, like he puts his foot down and says, I want this coffee table. And so he later goes on to regret it. But like, you know, you have that tension in the beginning, which you called argument,
it was an argument.
It
What
is.
else was it?
It is. But I mean, like Josh is saying, the guy's also trying to show his, hey, I'm here too. I want to make decisions. You've decorated the whole house. You've done the wedding. You named the baby. I want some kind of decision. But later on, it's like, why did I make that decision? I should have just agreed with her because of what happened.
Yeah, but something like a baby being decapitated by quote unquote unbreakable glass that Ron Jeremy sold to me.
That Hispanic Ron Jeremy sold.
That is like so far like on the realm of possibilities for like most people that you wouldn't consider it. Like, you know, I don't know. I think the experiment, like the experience of having having a son and then not having a son anymore, but like now having to tell your wife about that is kind of one of those things that's kind of like, to me, it switches the gears to where like he goes on to tell his brother that like, I don't want to live anymore. Like I'm not worthy of the breath that's in my lungs. And it completely shifts this to where you almost have this like dying man's perspective on things.
I mean, it becomes devastating. And one thing I wasn't sure, maybe I missed it. When you just brought up him telling his brother-in-law, and they were in the room where the baby's body was.
You might have fallen asleep.
No. Did it have the baby monitor still on, or did they cut that off? Because if they didn't, the mom would have heard it then.
That's a great question. I actually don't know. I think they might have cut it off.
I didn't see him cut it off, but that was something that caught my attention. Was like, you don't want her to know, but she's sitting at the baby monitor in the other room and can hear everything if it's still on.
Yeah. No, I mean you're not wrong. I don't even
but
know
apparently she didn't, because she was like, oh my god, it's the baby's head. When they finally brought the baby head out, she finally finds out what happened to her kid. But I don't believe a new mother like that, especially with a firstborn, is going to go to the grocery store and then come home and just take the father's word for, oh yeah, the baby's okay. That's bullshit. That's bullshit and a half.
Again, not having kids, I can't speak to that, but having a lot of friends that have been overstimulated by being a new mother, they do need that sense. They do need that time apart. They do need that time on their own. And it also allows for the father to be a father.
And it also depends on how hard the pregnancy was, that she may need that little bit of time, because it could have been hard or could have gone on her mental also. I know that went through with us, because we had one of our sons where he wouldn't actually feed. We would have to put a tube on our finger to feed him with the tube, kind of like so he would nurse, because he wouldn't nurse at all. And I mean, yeah, that was her break to go to the store or to go away to give her time and peace away from it, because you just need that sometimes.
Well, it sounded like from the arguments and debates that it was a whoops baby anyway. So
I don't know. They
I don't
said they
know.
were trying for a decade.
they did.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But
what
that's
she
not a
tells him
whoop
in
baby.
the grocery
No,
store.
that was the brother. Never mind. That was
The brother
that-
is the whoops baby with the
Yeah.
18-year-old. And then Rod Jeremy's trying to make friends with Jesus in the hallway, promise him a fan so he'll go to the movies or something with him. So
Which I will also say that scene right there is a great call back. And I don't know if this is intentional or not. Great call back to The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3.
and then was it just me? But I know the 13-year-old or whatever was trying to hit on him and get him to run away. But did the mom also hit on him when he was trying to get the cleaning supplies?
She did.
Yeah.
Like
my room's pink. Would you like to see it?
What about you? I will say, for as dark as this film is, don't mind Mark. As dark as this film is thematically, this movie actually like hits you with some like really smart comedy that just kind of seems unexpected.
I mean, Maria cackling in the kitchen about the broken coffee table. I mean, it was ironic though, because she's cackling, but she's like, I wish I was here to see your face, not knowing what happened. So in the two different contexts, one, it's funny because you're like, yeah, he's regretting all this, but the other one's fun, not because no, you would not have wanted to saw your kid decapitated. So
me and Kate watched it together, and we spent like 10 minutes afterwards going, "Why is this labeled a dark comedy?"
So I've seen this, as I've said, I've seen this movie a few times. It didn't hit me with the dark comedy until this time. Like there are moments where like Jesus's brother, I think, like says a couple of has a couple of moments where like he'll give some quips that are pretty funny. Like the cackling scene is really funny. The like Jesus's neighbor hitting on him when he gets the cleaning supplies is really funny. Like I think there are a few moments in here, but they come in kind of like unexpected moments. But again, comedy is one of those things that is really subjective. So what hits for me doesn't necessarily hit for you. And apparently art is subjective too, which
I mean,
to an extent, art can be.
And as unhappy and everything as they were, I watched it one more time because I didn't catch it, because I watched it on my phone a couple of times, but this time I watched it on my laptop. In the very last scene, when the cop car pulls away, it shows the two of them with the baby and the table, and it's like they're together, and it looked like they're happy at that point, or more not arguing like they had been or disagreeing, more of together. Put it that way.
So let me ask you a question. And this is probably a really tiresome trope that we see a lot, that couples that are toxic for one another, that they're like, if I have a kid, it'll make everything better. Or you realize that you're toxic, but you're like, let's stay married for the kids. How do you guys feel about tropes like that?
Usually the toxic one doesn't realize they're the toxic one.
I mean, in this case, I would say that they're both kind of toxic for one another.
I mean, I don't think a kid would save a relationship. I think a kid would put more, not burden, but more stress and more onto it.
Name one toxic relationship that a kid has made better.
You can't.
That's the point. I mean, if it's already toxic before a kid and they're unhappy, staying together and everything, they're going to go out and, I look at it this way, they're going to go out and cheat or do stuff behind each other's back, which isn't a relationship to me at that point.
I mean, I would say that like a toxic relationships, like you don't, like Mark was saying, like you don't really know that you're in a toxic relationship until you either get out of it or until there's like that moment where you have a wake up call. And sometimes there's also this level of, Stockholm syndrome that kind of comes along with it as well, to where like you could have people that are speaking into your circumstances and being like, I don't think you guys are right for one another, but you're so in love that you can't see it.
Right. I mean, I've got a friend that is going through a divorce now that her person was a narcissist. Serious, to the T, a narcissist. And she's still dealing with that. So I get what you're saying. We're so in love and everything, but you do hit that point to where it's obvious of, okay, we're not happy. And if you're not happy, then the kids aren't going to be happy, is the way I look at it. It's just, it trickles down.
And then it turns into usually the toxic one trying to take control of the child
or manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, going back to the coffee table, I think that we only see a portion of the relationship prior to the event of the coffee table, but I think it kind of gives us a glimpse into what that relationship looks like, to where it's like these two might not actually be right for one another. I don't know if you guys felt that way, but that's kind of always how I've looked at the relationship, to where like it seems like Jesus genuinely loves Maria, but they also don't quite feel like they're right for one another.
But you're also dealing with one day out of their entire life.
Right. They did make a comment or a couple of how both of them were happy, and both of them before the baby, and even a couple scenes where it showed the picture of them with the baby and how happy they were and everything. I mean, it could be that we saw the one day that, they were fighting or whatever.
Yeah, but everybody like poses like for pictures. So like pictures are a terrible example to like pull from.
Yeah, no, I about from pictures, talking about in general. You're only seeing one day out of their entire relationship. It could have just been an off day before everything hit the fan, or the coffee table in this case.
The coffee table could have been the whole cause of the bad day, because that was the argument. She didn't like it. He did. Like this movie, Mark doesn't like it and we do. So
I think the reason I bring it up is because I feel like when he's like trying to like defend the decision to buy the table, like you can tell that like there's this level of narcissism that it seems like Maria has to her, to where, she got everything she wanted at the wedding, got everything she wanted to with the kid, got everything that she wanted to with the home. And like, this was the one thing that he was promised and allowed to. And like now, because she doesn't necessarily like it, she's pushing back against that original agreement. So like, that's what I'm saying, is that it seems like from this brief introduction into their marriage, that it doesn't seem like it's probably the healthiest, whether it's one day or not.
From the window we saw, no, it doesn't seem like the healthiest, and it doesn't seem like, even though they say they're happy, that they're actually happy.
Yeah, because like also I've had family members that I thought had really solid relationships, really solid marriages, and after breakups happen, divorces happen, or splits happen, then you kind of find out like all of the road that led to that decision. Okay, these people actually were fairly toxic and harmful for one another.
Right. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. They just need to be bad for each other. I mean, I've seen that too. Now, there are the narcissists, but there are some people that like one person's belief and the other person's belief doesn't kind of coexist or commingle, and that could cause them to butt heads and, not work out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that's the other thing too, is that like it's one of those things that
you know, like you said, like some people are not necessarily right for the person that they're currently with, but you know, maybe it's for someone else, or maybe they need to work on some of their own mental health before jumping into, you know, a relationship, or maybe a relationship has caused some mental health problems that they need to either work through together or work through themselves. You know, and a kid, like that disagreement on the kid, I think is the one thing that like really gets me about the relationship, is because it is it's a big commitment. It's a big life choice. So for both of you guys that are fathers, do you guys think you guys were ready when you had kids?
You're never really ready.
No, I wasn't. I was in college and everything else when I had my first son. And then my wife had her son when I met her. She had already had him, and we got together. So that was kind of like instant family, 2 kids. And then both of us had 2 together. So you think I ended up with 4 kids. I got through my associates, but I dropped out during my bachelor's because the decision was I was going to take care of my kids.
Yeah. I have mine. My wife has hers. We do not have ours. And that's
You got puppy.
yeah, we got puppy. And that's by choice. So the kids are adults now, and we don't have the energy to deal with that again.
I'm younger than you guys. I won't say fairly younger. I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but I get a lot of shit from a lot of people for not wanting kids. And the thing about it is that I've watched good, solid marriages be tested over the years when it comes to marriage, or when it comes to kids.
The thing of it is it's a none of your situation. It's none of your business whether you want kids or not. That's all your business. Who cares what they think?
I mean, I've definitely like I've come around to like thinking it, but like I don't know, for a while, like I thought I was like, man, it was like, am I wrong like in this situation? But at the end of the day, like I'm the one that would have to live with that. That's
Right.
my time, that's my energy, that's my, you know, it's me and my wife's time and everything like that. And you know, we sat down, we talked about it for years, we prayed about it for years, and we just kind of felt like it wasn't something that was supposed to be a part of our story. And you know, it's not going to be for everyone, and it's
No.
You know,
I've seen people that didn't want kids have kids and love them to death, best parent ever. I've seen people who've wanted kids have kids and horrible parents. I mean,
it's not what they expected.
and I've seen people that want kids can't have kids and are miserable by it. So it's more than just were you ready? Are you ready? There's a lot involved across the board, but it just boils down. It's your decision or accident, one way or another, depending on who you are.
And like he said, it's Nunya, because whenever it comes down to the kids, it's you and the person you're with that's taking care of the kids.
That is a kiss my ass situation.
Yeah. It's the decision that you make, and it doesn't matter if somebody second guesses you or what. You make the decision that you think is right.
Yep. You don't like it? Kiss my ass. It ain't your problem.
One of the things that that really kind of hit me on this viewing is the way that Jesus responds to it when he's like the scene where he's alone and she's like coming back from the grocery store, and you see right then and there, like he looks over the ledge and kind of in the foreground sees all these kids, and he's like, I'm gonna jump, but there's kids here, I don't want to scar them. He kind of comes back, and the subject kind of comes up a little bit later. So you know, he's not eating, but he's like trying to get drunk on an empty stomach, which if you learn nothing else from this episode, don't do that. Terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible life choices right there. But he goes and he like when he starts confiding into his brother, he tells him about how like he doesn't want to be living anymore and like he doesn't deserve to be here. And I think, whatever circumstances lead people to thoughts like that, I think this movie captures that really well. This is a actual factual side effect of what trauma could look like and how we respond to trauma.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he followed Maria to death. I mean, literally. Even though he held off because he didn't want to traumatize the kids, which is something I was going to bring up about the playground and all. But when she did it, he turned around and he jumped too. Something like that could definitely traumatize anybody to where shut down like he did, in your own head. And then he said one of the key sentences he said was, I gotta rest. I can't do this anymore. I need to rest.
That's the
And
other
that's when he was done. He's like, I'm done. I don't know how to break this to my wife. I don't know how to break this to Maria, and it's going to kill her, quite literally. So
That's the other thing. That's the other line I wanted to bring up was the I gotta rest, because part of having depression is it's exhausting. Part of having anxiety, it is draining literally on you. Like, and part of being at your wit's end, like it's just like that's the one thing you want. I want rest. I want something that can literally be a starting point, a start over, a do-over, whatever you want to call it, to kind of alleviate this pain or this restlessness that I feel. And especially in that moment, where, the movie follows suit, like after it's essentially like, it's this big secret that you're waiting to come out. And that, I don't know if you've ever, I don't know how you guys get when someone says the phrase to you, I gotta talk to you. It like instantly skyrockets like my anxiety, and I'm just like, replaying every interaction I've had with that person, especially if it's like my boss. Like I'm like, oh, what did I do now? Kind of thing. And that phrase, I gotta rest, like it's just what it feels like, because that's the one thing I feel like doesn't get talked about enough when you're talking about the subject of depression and the mental health symptoms surrounding that, is that it is exhausting.
And I mean, it may not be just mental, it can be physically exhausting, and you may not realize you're depressed. I mean, I felt tired forever until like we've talked before, where Mark pulled me out. But that's all I wanted to do was sleep. I worked, I slept, took care of the kids, whatever, but I slept. That was me. That was my life at the time, because I was just too tired to do anything else. So it could definitely pull on you. It could definitely get to you. And you're feeling like that, you need to make sure you find somebody to talk to. Doesn't have to be professional. It can be a friend or anybody, but there's people out there that will help you.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
I think it's also kind of intimidating going through that kind of stuff and finding talking with somebody about it. And I think this movie also explores that because he's like, you can tell that he's like yearning to kind of tell somebody about it, and it eventually ends up being his brother, which I want a spin-off movie where the two of it's a comedy, and it's just the two of them where his brother's cleaning up the mess of Jesus. I don't know why. I just think that would be entertaining, but I digress. One of the things
he was like hauled off at the end in complete and total shock. Sure, he's gonna have a grand old time.
you make it a prequel, it'll be fine.
But then how would he be cleaning up his mess?
Well, start with the white jacket and then let him out.
So they talk about it in there that like Jesus has made messes before, and like his brother's always been the one to like help him clean it up. Did you catch that?
I thought that was the other way around, that he was saying his brother that knocked up the 18-year-old was the one that was always making messes. It was another one of his messes.
No. When they were standing over the baby, he was like, give me a second. Stop talking crazy. Let me think. Let me figure something out. We're going to figure this out. Just shut up, basically, is what he was saying.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
So I'll go back to the point, building off of what Billy was saying, is that sometimes I think it's really intimidating when you go through seasons of depression, because people are like, oh, you should get therapy. And honestly, if you have one solid person in your life that you could just kind of be vulnerable with, it takes a lot of that pressure off, and it releases a lot of stuff. And so for like Billy, I think in your example, Mark was kind of that for you, where he's like, let's pop that bubble, my guy. Let's go over and watch
pretty much
and mud wrestling.
Pretty much mud wrestling. Pretty much. I mean, it because I'm not gonna lie, just the thought or seeing or going to talk to somebody, the stigma behind that can be intimidating. Because it was to me. It was like, okay, people are going to think I'm crazy now because I'm going to go talk to somebody. I don't feel that way anymore. I actually do go talk to a therapist all the time now, but Mark broke that for me. Mark was able to get me out of my shell where I was stuck. And like I said, a good friend or somebody that's there can definitely help you. As Mark smiles over there.
And then like eventually like kind of phase into, things like therapy and,
right.
Maybe even some physical exercises that can kind of help alleviate some of that stress and stuff like that as well.
Yep, exactly. So can I go back to something?
Sure.
Yeah, Maria. Ruth is just a mini me of her.
You're not wrong. When you put it in that context, you're not wrong.
But they were standing at the door, and she's like, now's not a good time, but now's going to be a good time. And I'm like, dude, you're looking in a mirror.
Just
he
sticks
has
the foot out.
He has a type.
That whole thing was weird.
It'll be okay. You'll pick the next weird movie, Mark.
I mean, yes and no, because like kids are, especially like as the hormones are starting to like kind of develop, like I gotta imagine that kids, as they're going through puberty, they kind of see the world a little bit differently. So interactions like, in this case with Jesus, giving poetry as to help with a school assignment. Okay, I understand how that kind of, she's catching feelings kind of thing.
Specifically love poem assignment. Make that clear. Make that clear. It was specifically love poem. So she was reading into it, but I want to make sure you make it clear that it wasn't just poetry. It was love poems. So she deeply read into that she tried to kiss him in the lift or the elevator or whatever. And then she twisted it and told his wife that he's the one that tried to kiss her.
Yeah, she's going to be someone's future toxic relationship.
Pretty much. I don't know. With the ending and the way that she shut down, that may have done a 180 on her. just the shock and everything, because they said that she was in shock and they had to take her to the hospital, I think it was, because of the shock.
Yeah.
That could have changed her whole mental right there.
I mean, I think everybody was in shock after finding a baby head under a recliner and people swan diving out windows.
Wait a minute, not Mark. Mark's the one that said it wasn't a good movie.
Well, Mark said it was a boring movie.
Yeah,
that was one of like the only 2-minute scenes in the whole movie that something happened, and nothing even really happened. It was just, oh, this is implied that it happened.
I also, anytime you involve suicide, I think there's a lot of art or films here in America that do it really tastefully, that do not have good taste when they do it, to where, you know, you might see a rope go around a tree as a noose, and then you see feet drop, or you see the bodies drop, or, you know, you see bodies and nooses and whatever. Like, I liked that this had a little bit of art to it, to where you didn't necessarily need to see the bodies. It was implied just by the railing and context from some of Jesus's earlier comments. And then as the police car pulled away, you kind of get that image of the family reunited. Like, I really thought the ending to this movie was disturbingly beautiful.
no, I agree 100%. I mean, you've got your omens and all, to where they show the nooses and the bodies hanging and the everything.
This is for you,
And
Damien.
exactly. But then you don't have to always show that. I mean, they didn't even have to show the baby actually being decapitated in this movie for you to get the effect of what happened. At least not to me, but I guess Mark is a show me guy. He's got to see everything. Whereas on this, you could see what was going through without having to actually see.
No, it's a case of I don't want to have to psychoanalyze my movies to figure out all these deep meanings. I think some people read into meanings far more than they should sometimes.
I think you know, I think here stateside we've kind of become very reliant on the show me aspect of things,
Right.
to where when you're dealing with the subjects that the coffee table is still a movie that hits with a shock and still hits with the hammer, because of how it demonstrates it, to where, like, okay, the baby getting decapitated, like, you see the glass break, the baby stops crying, boom. And then the next thing you know, you kind of see these camera angles of Jesus's face, like blood splatters, like, you understand what happens. And then I go back to how this film portrays suicide. I wish that more films took that approach to a subject like suicide. I loathe, as somebody that has lost people to suicide, I hate the way that certain films portray it, to where it might be a 1-2, okay, they're dead kind of thing. But, like, I go back to, 13 Reasons Why, which was a super controversial Netflix show from a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And first season revolves around this girl. She kills herself. She creates 13 Reasons Why, and it builds up in the last episode to where you actually see the suicide. Like, it's a very graphic scene, and it didn't need to be seen. Like, you literally have been building it. We didn't need to see it. We knew what happened. Right. And I think for something like the coffee table, I think it's very tasteful in how it portrays this. It kind of gives this sense of, as disturbing as it is, there's almost kind of this, like, peace and hope that you see at the very end.
Yeah, it like I said, for me, it has nothing to do with show me. It just, I don't know.
Hey, can we write this down as a record? This is one of the podcasts that Mark's talked the least.
No, I've said quite a bit, actually.
You talked less than I did this time, so you can tell I actually liked the movie, but Yeah, I mean, I can understand, I guess, a little bit, Mark, but
The
at the
thing
same
is,
time,
the thing is, you talk about that. If I were to cut loose, we'd lose half our fans. So
Slow your roll there. The only other, like, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to bring up, Billy. The only other thing that I really wanted to, before we kind of dip out, is draw attention to is the score in this movie by Esther Mendez. I think it really allows the emotion through the music. The music allows the emotions to kind of become heightened. I think a lot of the big reveal and the tension in the last scene, I think it works a lot better because of how the music and scores alongside of that direction storytelling.
no, I agree, because like I said earlier, you I mean, you could turn off the subtitles and still kind of know what's going on without actually understanding what they're saying and all, just by the feeling, the reaction, the way everything goes through. But this, of course, you want to know the whole story, but just going based off the feeling and interacting with how everything's going, you can kind of get a gist of what's going on without even the words, by the music and by the acting and everything.
I don't think there was any saving this movie as far as I'm concerned.
All right, well, don't listen to him. 2 out of thirds of us loved this movie.
So if Mark's saying it's bad, it's a great movie. Go watch it.
Mob rule isn't always correct.
Which means that, you probably should also skip Brotherhood of the Wolf from last week as well.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us. Again, if you guys have seen The Coffee Table, let us know what you guys thought. And you guys agree with Billy, me, you guys stand with Mark, let us know. Comment on this, or either on victimsandvillains.net/podcasts or on Facebook. But where can people find you online, Mark?
Painting miniatures and junk on Instagram, like always. Yeah, Titanium Juggernaut Painting.
Billy, where can you find you?
You can find me at Letterboxd at VABoy99.
You guys can find me. I am over at Letterboxd as well. Captain Nostalgia is my handle. You guys can follow Abyss Gazing wherever you guys get your podcasts from. And you guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and wherever you guys get your podcasts from. We will be back next week kicking off our X, Pearl, and Maxine trilogy series before we jump into our Alien series shortly after that. So until next time, remember that the longer you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.